we're talking about exponential growth and exponential decay functions, and we want to sketch the graph y equals 5 times 2/3 raised to the x plus 1 power minus 2. So we do have a translation in the x direction of -1 and a translation in the y direction of -2. The first thing I want to do, if I'm doing this without a calculator, is I want to figure out what the points would be for 5 times 2/3 raised to the x power. So I'll still pick 0 and 1. 5 to the 2/3 times 0. 2/3 to the 0 is 1 times 5. So that point is equal to 5. And 5 times 2/3 to the first power, 2/3 to the first power, 2 times 5 is 10. So that's equal to 10/3. And so I have the point of, well, we're going to have 5, -5, -5, and 5. We have the point of 0, 5, and we have the point of 1 10/3, which is 3 1/3. So 3 1/3 is a little bit over there. If we solved it for 2, that would be 4/9, which would be 20/9, which would be 2 2/9, which is pretty close right there. So we have 3 points that we can graph on there. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to pay attention to the transformation, or the translation. So we're going to take these values here and we're going to apply a translation. This says x plus 1, so really we're going to take all the x values and we're going to subtract 1. This says -2, that's straightforward. So we're going to take all the y values and we're going to say y minus 2. So we'll take all those values and we'll apply that translation to it, and we'll get some new points for our graph here. So 0 minus 1 is -1. 5 minus 2 is 3. 1 minus 1 is 0. And 10/3 minus 2, that's 6/3. So we're going to be left with 4/3. So we can plot those points. -1, 3, and 0, 4/3. 0, 4/3. We can check to make sure that we have that correct. So back 1, down 2 looks good. Back 1, down 2 looks good. For this one, for this graph, our asymptote is y equals -2. And so when we go to graph it, we can put a line at -2 to make sure that we don't cross that line for our asymptote. And that's y equals -2. So for the original function that we graphed, which was 5 times 2/3 to the x, our asymptote was still the x-axis. And so we can do a sketch. And now for the actual function here, we'll be going down, and then our new asymptote will be y equals -2. So we're not going to cross that. Then we look at our domain. Our domain for this is still going to be all real numbers. The range, -2 is our lowest value. So we're going to start at -2 and we're going to go to infinity. Neither one is included, so we use the parentheses. Our asymptote is at y equals -2, and the y-intercept where we cross the y-axis, and that is at 0, 4/3. We can take a look, and we can see that we have the point 0.05 there. We go back 2, or back 1 down 2, and we can see that it's negative 1.3. We also calculated that we had the point of 1/10. So we go over 1 up. 10 thirds is 3 1/3. So if we go back 1, so back to the left 1 and down 2, that should be at 1 1/3. So 0, 1 3/3, or 1 1/3. And that's what our transformation will look like. So the green graph is the graph that we should have.